Hey, everybody, it's Chris Garrison with the Bigger Vision Show. I am so glad you guys decided to tune in. I've got two special guests today that's really going to enlighten us on the understanding of RV parks and mobile home communities. These guys are rock stars. I have met them through other masterminds, and you can always see the rock stars because everybody's always gathering around them and picking their brain. So I've got Paul Larson and Jeff Guo with me today. So, guys, introduce yourself and then kind of give us your backstory of what brought you into this asset class and what you got going on active at the moment as well. Go ahead,
Absolutely.
Paul.
All right, I'll go ahead. So Chris Garrison and I actually had a chance to meet, and we're part of a mastermind together, Legacy Family. We got to hang out, and our wives and family got to hang out a couple times. I think in Austin, Vegas, Orlando. So we've had some good times, and just glad to be on. And thanks for having us. But yeah, background has I work for corporate. Ran a lot of sales teams, helped build out BMW, Jag Land Rover, Cadillac, high end dealerships, and was recruited to come over and work for a real estate investment firm. And always loved real estate, and had an opportunity to go over and help build a team. So built out acquisitions, dispositions teams, marketing, so on and so forth. And we did a bunch of wholesaling and flipping, and I absolutely loved it. But spent just as many hours doing that as I did with corporate, away from the family, the kids, the wife, quite a bit, building something with someone else. Learned a ton, but just realized, hey man, I'm ready to build something that can be freeing of my time to be with my kids, to be with my wife, to travel, to like really enjoy life. And as I started, really digging in, multifamily, jumped out, and with the passive income, it really kind of helped build the lifestyle we were looking for. So, fast forward a few years, I stepped out, started my own company, bought, a couple hundred doors before I met Jeff. And Jeff and I actually met at Tim Bratt's event in 2020. And same place like this, right? Where all the guys that are trying to do great things, guys and girls trying to do great things, go to. And we hit it off. We shared each other's background, and I love Jeff's background, and we just really, genuinely enjoyed each other's time at the event. And we stayed in contact, and we did a small 5 unit deal, and I was like, man, that was awesome. Let's do another one. So we did a 125 unit deal, and then a 48 unit deal, then another 100 plus unit deal, and 400 plus units later, we're still here, and become brothers more than anything, quite honestly.
Man,
So
that,
yeah.
that's awesome. So, Jeff, tell me what led you up to that, because now we know you guys are for real rock stars. We just heard the door count.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, long story short, quickly about my background. I spent the first 18 years of my life in China, born and raised. Came to this country when I was 18 years old for college. So when I was 16, I remember going to high school in Shanghai. I came from a pretty entrepreneurial, family, and my family had this book on the table, Purple Book, right, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and they didn't tell me about it, and just I was, oh, what is that? And open it up. That day when I was 16 is the day that forever, my life path I know is going to be changed. And when other kids would take a physics book into class, I'll take Rich Dad Poor Dad reading. And teachers, what are you doing, Jeff? I say, guys, you cannot earn a W-2 income, and this is the way to do it. People look at me like alien, right? But that's when I know I want to do real estate. So fast forward, got my degree in finance and real estate in college, worked for a REIT, just really learn how,
Wow.
big boy, big girl, they do their stuff, and just learn how the institution do their acquisition.
What did you do with that REIT exactly? What was
Absolutely.
your daily activities?
So it's a mid-sized REIT based in Washington D.C. And my responsibility is asset management with the help of some acquisition as well. So it's a portfolio of roughly $350 million of commercial properties, mostly shopping centers, actually. So my daily is to make sure that the P&L checks out, the revenue drive the revenue up, make sure the expenses in place. I did not asset manage a whole portfolio. Obviously, I report to my boss, who's the veteran in this industry. And also, when I was there, we have acquired a few projects about 150, 160 million dollars. So obviously I did not do that all by myself. I get to see, how the industry veteran get to see do that. So did that for a number of years, and you know, and fast forward, I started wanting to do my own real estate and start buying stuff on my own, and that's right around the time that Paul and I met, and the rest of is history, like Paul said. So,
dude, I love the I guess you just say bravery, for lack of a better word, the fact that you were able to transition into another country and then jump into such a major role with the REIT. I mean, when you think about, at least for me, when I think about moving up in the real estate world, I'm like, yeah, the REITs are the big boys. That's legit money right there. So that's impressive. So how do y'all work as your dynamic between the two of you guys? I mean, do y'all kind of just mix and mingle responsibilities, or do y'all separate the responsibilities up per asset purchase? How does that work?
Yeah. So
either one of y'all.
Yeah, so I think that it's important to add value on both sides. It's tough to have two Pauls or two Jeffs running around. So I like to think
Right.
we add value very much so. We do a couple of things the same. We do them really well, but just give you an instance. So we both raise capital. So if we need X dollars raised, I usually raise half, he raises half, but whoever gets to it first, whatever needs to happen, we do that. We both get good deal flow. Jeff brings deals to the table. I bring deals to the table. I negotiate these deals. I get on the phone. That's my background, running a wholesale company, being in the dealerships and just negotiating has been my thing. So I negotiate the deals, get all the meat on the bone. Jeff analyzes them. He's a mad scientist. He uses his REIT background to really analyze these deals. He does them much better and faster than me. And I think hair stands up on the back of his neck when he gets to look at spreadsheets. So anything that has numbers, he loves. So and I'm the opposite. I'm so ready to pass that off to him. Just tell me how much we need to pay for it, Jeff, and then I get on the phone and start negotiating. Once that happens, and again, Jeff and I are on the phone every day at 8 a.m. every single morning. We talk about our deals, what's going on, what's in the pipeline. But even most importantly, getting these deals that we already bought in full cycle. We take care of these deals. So we, like with his background in the REIT and analyzing and being the asset manager, I do really well with project management. I work with the contractors, making sure that we get the budget right, making sure the timelines are where they need to be to get this project underway and buttoned up so that we can fill the parks and have them producing the money. So I think we add a ton of value on both sides and mesh it very well.
I love it. So on the unit, the properties that you currently have, are these all with an understanding that you are going to keep them for a while, or do you have any that you're going to just turn and burn real quick so that you can move on to the next one?
Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, our mindset is, buy and hold, unless there's some special reason, which I could touch in a second, we like to buy, cash or refi to recycle the capital and then hold on to those deals longer term. For some of our bigger stuff that we bought in the last 6 to 9 months, I think, unless we buy much bigger stuff, right, we like to hold on to them. But some of the smaller stuff, the first deal that Paul and I ever done, a year and a half ago, the 5-unit, we actually offload that one, nice profit, for both of us. And then the second deal we bought, we're actually in the process of selling that as well as a 48-unit mobile home park. The reason being, right now, as crazy as it might sound, it's just too small for us because we spend a lot of time and energy and resources in a 48-unit as we're spending on the 125-unit, right? So it's just not a best return on our time, if you will. So we're in the process of offloading that. So who knows? 5 years from now, Paul and I might be like, hey, let's offload some of those 125 units. But as of now, our mindset is, hey, if we can hold it and if it can be passive, we want to hold it.
Jeff, where do you live?
St. Augustine, Florida.
All right. And Paul, where do you live?
Spanish Fort, Alabama.
So what's that distance driving between y'all?
Was it like 8 hours, 7-8 hours, Jeff?
Yep, absolutely. And this is a beautiful thing, Chris, is I think it's one thing is the pandemic that forces that way, but also, my wife has been working from home in day one, from 10 years ago, even before work from home is a real thing. So one quick thing I want to share with you, Chris, is that the last deal that we bought together, which has turned out to be our most lucrative deal, I was about 8,000 miles away. I was with my family in Hong Kong, giving birth to our second daughter, Grace, who was 3 months old right now. I was literally at a hotel room being quarantined for 21 days.
I remember seeing that on Facebook. Yeah.
When we closed on that deal, right? When I say quarantine, I mean, if you step your foot outside the door, you're taken to the police station kind of quarantine, right?
Wow.
And gosh, my Paul and I would be talking for, a few hours each day, and we closed the deal with us about 8,000 miles apart as opposed to 5 or 6 hours. So that's the beauty about real estate and partnership and teamwork, and distance is not a thing,
So who did y'all both go and do the due diligence on that? I'm assuming y'all were right there at, signing portion while you were in Hong Kong. So were y'all both walking for the property for due diligence, or was that just you, Paul?
We walk together every time. We make it an event. So every time that we do that, we always stay for 2 to 3 days. We get to learn the market. If it's not, so we have properties in Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. So I know my backyard. Jeff knows his backyard, but we love the Gulf Coast because the seasonality, it stays warm practically all year. So parks, it's good for RV parks, if you will. We don't have cold months where they're shut down. But there's plenty of places in the Southeast that's not in our backyard. So we actually go, we learn the town, we learn the city, we learn, what are market comps. We drive the parks, we drive the apartments, we look at the surrounding area to really just get that feel. And it's fun. I mean, like I said, this is my brother here. So we make an event out of it, and we go eat good food, drinks, and, check the town out. But the most important thing is we're looking for dead bodies, and it's better when we have 4 eyes and 4 ears, right? So we're there together as a team, trying to have each other's back on, are we missing something somewhere? So we do it as a team.
Very impressive dynamic between you guys. I didn't know we were going to get this kind of gold on this interview, but very glad. So tell me about what is, Jeff, what's the buy box? What is that underwriting criteria that says, Paul, we've got to jump on this?
Yeah. Absolutely. So if you ask me this question, Chris, 2 years ago before I met Paul, I'll give you my REITs/institution answer, right? I'll show you my Excel spreadsheet with 15 different tabs and show you at what rent growth, yada, yada, yada. But Paul's really helped me to simplify it, right? So our buying box is super simple. 75 pad and above in an area that has a positive and strong population growth. And we need at least 30% equity from day one, kind of like Tim Broad's, typical buying criteria. And if it fits those three, we're going to take a much deeper look at it. If it doesn't, we're going to move on to the next deal. So that's it. Takes about a few minutes to figure it out.
How are y'all sourcing your deals? Do you have certain markets that you've already checked to see population growth is good, so you're just soliciting those particular markets? What does that look like for your lead generation acquisition side?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And that's something that we're working on right now. That's always a work in progress. I think we've done really well by, word of mouth. To be quite honest, Chris, people know us as the RV guys, right? So they think of us instantly whenever they have a deal. So we work well with brokers, off market. We work well with sellers. When I first started buying, I bought about 2 parks before I met Jeff. And, I did it old school way because that's where I came from. I mean, I drove for dollars. I would drive into parks, meet the managers, look around and go, wow, this thing has tall grass. I mean, this park's halfway, it's 50% vacant. I'm seeing a sign on the door, we're closed. I look for all these little things, right? So then I start looking up information. But since Jeff and I started teaming up, we've done a really good job. One, social media has been big for us. Every time we do due diligence happens, a deal we close, anything we put under contract, we post. And that drums up business for us. I mean, instantly. So, and then we do a good job of taking those names and information and people and plugging them into our spreadsheet so that we constantly tap on them. But we're working towards, we also pull information ourselves, but we're working towards also building a little machine that can be tapping on it like we did in the wholesale business, right? Something that's always, it's a pipeline of trying to build that. We've just been fortunate with word of mouth.
Yeah. Have y'all started using Pipeline, Tim's new lead generation software? Are you aware?
Yeah, we are aware of it, and that's what actually, Jeff and I spoke about that. I think we took a day or two last week to kind of talk about that. And I'm actually going to spend some time with Tim. And are you going to be at Tim's Charleston event?
No, I'll be at the Denver event though.
Yeah, we'll see you there too. I'm actually going to sit down and kind of chat with some guys there and see how it's been working. But anything that Tim has is going to be gold. So, have you used it?
I haven't yet. I logged in, but I've not played around with it, and I've kind of got that FOMO feel a little bit because I'll see them chattering about it in the group, and so I'm sitting here thinking, oh, I'm missing out. I need to get involved. So I thought I'd
take advantage of it. We're obviously going to. I'm sure it's very valuable, and there'd be no reason not to.
Most definitely. So, what do people expect? Tell me the pros and the cons of the RV park, and then if it's different, tell me the mobile home park pros and cons.
So, and Jeff can chime in too. As far as the mobile home parks, pros are they're stationary, right? They're in place. They're not going anywhere. You can't move. It costs $5,000 to $7,000 depending on the market to move them, right? So that's that consistency that people really like about mobile home parks. Lenders like that. Buyers like it, right? That's great. On the other hand, it's more challenging to evict someone, right? That's not a paying tenant. They own the home. So now you got to go through all that. Well, we've gotten really good at that. So we understand what to do, but that's probably, a downside. Another thing is that, being that they are stationary, when you buy a part, they're really old. You have to remove a bunch of them. It does get pretty costly. So that's like a win-lose type thing. It depends on, the market and how well the mobile home is built. I think the same goes for the RV park, right? You have some transient that you have to handle. So you have management that you have to put processes and systems in place to make sure that, things are automated, to make sure that things are running smoothly, to keep your reviews up. So it's a little more, managerial, but, another thing is in the Southeast, it's easy to, remove a RV tenant. You don't have to go through an eviction in Alabama. You're under the same rules as hotels, so that way you can remove a tenant like that, And
how does that work? Paint a picture for me. Are you hooking up to the hitch and pulling it out of your yard?
So, I mean, listen, when you're dealing with RV parks and mobile home parks, I mean, if you're not dealing with absolutely Class A, then you have to lay the law down. Like, you have to have clear expectations whenever, you bring somebody in. Like, your property manager needs to have a set of rules. They need to be passed out to everyone. Everyone needs to understand when they move into this park, these are the rules, X, Y, and Z. If you break this, you're gone. If you do not leave, we will hook up and pull it out. And then you can go find it down the road. That sounds harsh, but sometimes you have to be, pretty straightforward. And that's how we run a clean park. We want to give safe community, a friendly community. We want people to, be able to spend time with each other and be able to walk outside and enjoy the fresh feel of a park, right? We're not selling lords. We don't put up with alcohol. We don't put up with domestic violence, loud music, stuff like that. We want a nice, clean, family-friendly community. So we gotta uphold the rules and stand by them.
Okay, so that makes sense, and I agree 100%. Yeah, if you don't have the law down, then people are going to abuse it. That's why rules are there. What you got, Jeff?
Yeah, one con I was going to mention is that, one thing we find more challenging than, let's say, other asset classes, single-family apartments and mobile home parks on the RV, is that a lot of lenders are not yet open for this asset class. So some acquisitions we've done in the past, the majority of them are through seller financing, with one exception with the local banks. So same thing will carry over for the cash out refinance, right? Because our business model is to go in, improve the efficiency of the operation, increase the rent, increase the NOI, do a cash out refinance. So it is more challenging when it comes to the debt financing portion, but also we're seeing, things are changing. More and more lenders are willing to come into the space. But as of now, I'll put that as a con for our RV space compared to other asset class.
Okay, I'm going to come back to the lender situation in just a second. I'm still curious about the mobile home side of eviction, because I've sold cars, I've got businesses, and when it comes to the collection side, that's the side that is just not glamorous. That's the side nobody enjoys. Everybody it loves the smiles, the shaking of the hands, the celebration of a new thing. But then when it comes day where they're behind and late fees start and that kind of deal, everybody's attitude gets sour. So on the mobile home side, you said that eviction process was a little different. These people own their homes. They've paid the $5,000 to $7,000 to have it moved into. So it's going to cost them $5,000 or $7,000 to move it out. What does that process look like?
So we can really go down a rabbit hole with this stuff, but I'll keep it very high level.
High level.
Yeah. So the main thing is again, when you buy these parks, you have to have a town hall meeting. You want everybody to know, hey, this is us. This is who we are. This is how we buy parks. This is our rules. You will abide by these rules, right? If you don't like it, then you need to let me know now. So if we have to evict someone that owns a home, there's a fine line. Every state has its, regulations. We're use Alabama, for instance.
Sure.
Very landlord friendly state. You don't have to evict anyone because they're not paying you. You can evict anyone for any reason. I mean, you just say, I don't want you to be at my park or in my apartment or whatever. You can evict someone, right? We don't do that, but if we're having a problem, we handle it. So at that point, you have an option. Listen, we're going to go to court and we're going to win and you're going to leave home, right? So we can do one of two ways. One way is we can do cash for keys. I'll buy the home from you. You won't have to go to court. You won't have to get an eviction on your record, and at least you'll get some money for your home. Because if we go to court, we're going to win. You're going to be without a home, and then it's going to be in our park. And we're going to tear it down, right? We're going to tear it out, and we're going to bring a new home in. So let's help you win on this situation too. So that way we can both walk away with something, right? And if they don't agree with that, 90% of them will, Chris. 90% of them will. You have to have 100% conviction in your voice when you talk and you hold these conversations. And if you have one that fights you because they're just, not working with you, you win, and then you'll tear their home out of the park. Or if it's a decent home, you can rent it.
So you literally can capture the title to these homes after you've gone through court on eviction if they don't move them.
Yeah, and what I do is normally I'll work a deal out with them and they'll sell the home to me for a very good price. It's good for them and us, and we'll get them to write it over to us. I mean, almost 95% of the times they'll do that. So there's only a small chance that doesn't happen.
Awesome. Okay. So great explanation. Thank you for explaining that, because that was definitely a big question mark I had.
Yep.
So now that we've identified we've got a good deal, we've got to fund this thing and purchase it. And you were talking about like RV parks, Jeff. The lenders are not as familiar with those, so you're doing a lot of owner financing. What is an expectation of someone that's trying to buy mobile home parks? And it sounds like the mobile home is a little more accepted than the RV with bank money. But explain a mobile home park and how they evaluate it from a bank side, and then also give me that RV. What some of the objections you've been encountering when you're going to the banks about these?
Yeah. So on the bank side, how they look at the mobile homes, usually there are two ways to look at it, depending on if they take into consideration the lot rent as well as the park home rents, right? So the majority of the lenders, how they'll look at it, let's say if we have a 50 pad, park, it's a mix of lot rent only, meaning the tenant own their homes, they just pay us a lot rent, and also some other homes, the park, the owner actually owns the structure of the homes, right? So they'll pay us a higher rent that breaks down into the lot rent portion and also the park home rent portion. Most lenders that look at it, they will, first of all, take away the park home rent. So, okay, 50 homes, what's the lot rent? Call it $300, right? That's a lot rent. The times the amount of homes on there, call it 50. That's $15,000. Then we'll apply an expense ratio and then the cap rate to come up with an valuation with lot rent only. And on top of that, they will say, okay, you've got 30 homes that are owned by the park. What's their vintage? What's their condition? And each one is worth, let's call it $10,000. $10,000 a piece times 30. That's $300,000. So they'll add that on top of the income approach from the lot rent. So that's how the majority of the bank would value the mobile homes. But also you've got some small amount of banks that will look at the aggregated rent, lot rent plus the park home rent minus the expenses, come up with NOI, and then the cap rate to capture the valuation. Those are the two ways that we've seen bank look at mobile homes.
What are you seeing on your average expense ratio for your mobile home parks that are mainly pad only?
If it's mainly pad, probably you'll probably be a better person, but I think pretty low.
It's low. It's very low. I mean, because you got to understand, you're only working with utilities and roads and concrete pads, right? Very minimal. We're not working with roofs and sheetrock and windows and floors and toilets, really, with just the exterior plumbing. So, you know, I mean, you can hit it low, but banks are always going to hit it at what they're going to want to hit it at. But if you're going to look at it, analyzing one, I mean, 25% or less.
So y'all were underwriting with the 25% or less on your underwriting expenses. And I'm assuming that must be what the bank is kind of underwriting it with.
The bank's going to probably hit you at about 35%, but what we're going to look at it for internally is 25%. We'll still underwrite it with 35%, but internally we're going to look at what we know we can do. And I don't know if Jeff just mentioned this or not, but Jeff, did you mention about how to lay the pad rent out versus the home rent to get a higher evaluation, right? That's what you just said, correct?
Yeah, touch base on that a little bit, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that's highly important, because we learned that as we were going, that if you're gonna do a home, like if you own the park home and let's say you're gonna get do a seller finance for $600, make portion of it go to say $450 and $150 go towards the home. So when they analyze that, they go off of that pad rent. That can give you a 7-figure additional valuation. Yeah, that's highly important.
That's man, that's pro tip right there.
That's big. That's big.
Okay, so what are y'all heavier in your mobile home or your RV right now?
RV.
And is that really do you have a favorite out of the two?
Well, I think it used to be mobile homes, but COVID happened. So there's been a lot of challenge in getting used homes because a lot of the big boys would fill their park with new homes. When the supply chain slowed down, they had to go and buy a lot of used homes. So if you buy a 200 pad park and it's 60% occupied, right? You got 80 homes you got to fill. So with that being said, you put 80 new homes in. If you don't have a supply chain, you go out and buy nice used homes. So the used home market dried up pretty quickly after 2020 hit. And so it made it a little bit challenging. We bought a 100 pad park, and because we'd buy a 60% occupied park, that was bread and butter. And we buy a home for $5,000, put $5,000 in it and rent it for $500. Right. I mean, it was awesome. Huge. But we pivoted. We made a change to RVs because these RVs can come and go. We can market and fill these pads up, and so we look at it from a little bit of different standpoint, and we're not really worried about the transient. We actually welcome it because we're like, okay, we can fill these parks. Let's market. Let's see if we can get some long term in there too. We like to have more long term than we do short term at our parks.
I would think you're marketing your RV parks heavier than your mobile home parks. Is that the case?
Yes.
Yeah. Just because you got seasonal visitors in your transient as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does an RV park look like? I mean, I know there's a couple here. There's one that's got an asphalt road and then it runs over in the gravel pads. Then there's another one that's 100% gravel and it looks just like a mud pit all around it because it's in newer construction, but filled up very quick. Kind of describe what your parks look like. RV.
Yeah. You want me to touch on that, Jeff, or you want?
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
We have a mix. We have everything from small 40 pad park that is gravel with gravel pads, and it's a cash cow. It's amazing. It stays full. We have a waiting list for people to get in there. It's right on the water. People love it. It's quaint. It's clean. But it's not super high end. It's a great location. And then we have fish camps that 70 acres, 125 pad park, 1,500 frontage of water, boat slips. Wow. I mean, this is where people come out and the birds are chirping. It's quiet. They're fishing. They're 30 minutes away from town. And I mean, it's an absolute, beloved park that we have. Then we have, more of a higher end, park, in Florida where, it's, super well maintained RVs, and it's got a nice restaurant. It's got boat and RV storage. We're developing a new boat and RV storage in the middle portion. We're getting $1,100 a month per pad there versus $450 per month. Half of our parks have paved roads and concrete pads. The other half of our parks don't. It just really depends on the market, where it's at, and what the concept really is. That's the cool thing behind a park. It's like, what is the concept you're trying to go for? Because there's so many, niches in the RV park class. It's not just one way. You have different people that you attract, which brings in different rents. But at the end of the day, regardless if it's a $450 rent, a $250 rent, or $1,100 rent, we're not going to be slumlords, right? We're still going to keep it clean. You're gonna make sure that you don't have a bunch of washers and dryers and broke down cars, right? Like, maintain your area, keep it nice. We look for community. We really call them residents, and guests versus tenants. That's what we're looking for, is that sense of community. Wouldn't you agree, Jeff?
Absolutely, 100%.
Is there different pad sizes? I mean, are some folks coming in with big motor homes compared to, the camper that's being pulled behind, or y'all just set up to where if you've got a motor home, it's going to fit on all the pads?
Yeah. Most of our pad areas are large enough to take a 48 footer and a, 18 footer. Right.
Gotcha.
So, and you have different people that charge different things. Like, some parks will have like water view. Like, we have one park that has water view, and then, a portion of it doesn't. You can charge more for certain areas, just like in hotel room, right? You got a harbor view, you got a poolside view, you got the other building that you're seeing the building, right? So you can kind of, charge how you would prefer to, and you'll still be able to collect that. So, and also you can do some dynamic pricing as well as you start filling your park up. You may charge, say $100 a night, but let's say you got, 30 short term. Let's say you have a 100 pad park and you got 30 spaces left, right? Now you can start going, instead of 100, we can do $120 a night. And then it just keeps going up. You travel a lot. You go to a lot of these events, right? You notice how, like, if you go look at a hotel room and for some reason you didn't book it because you have all these calls and texts coming in, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, dang, I got to book this the very next day, or a flight. Right?
Yeah.
Flight price went up on you by X number of dollars.
Yeah.
Same thing with the parks. You can do that. So if you want to capture that, it's available.
What other areas are y'all finding that you can increase your revenue on these properties outside of just the pad rent?
I mean, there's so many. Jeff, you want to jump on that?
Yeah, I mean, like, for example, the park that we bought in Florida, the pad rent jump is definitely nice, more than we have expected. But on top of that, we find some, storage. We find out in the sub local market, everywhere you call it, the boat storage, the RV storage, completely full. So we have a back area of the RV park where we can put in 60, 80, potentially 100 RV storage at $100 a month. That's $10,000. And also the purchase comes with a portion of vacant land that we can build additional storage as well. Those are projects with relatively little capex compared to the amount of revenue can bring in. So storage, laundry income.
Yeah, laundry facilities are big.
Yep, laundry facility, and also we have a restaurant on site that we don't operate a restaurant, complete triple net lease. That's some additional income as well. So we can be as creative as you can think of in terms of what value can we bring to the local residents so that they're willing to pay for it. So those are
you can. Those are great. Those are great ones, Jeff. You can also arbitrage a couple things like cable, internet, right? So you can get with an internet provider. Say you have 100 pads, and these guys will put their own internet out there, and they're spending $75 a month, right? And you can go and get a plan for, say, $1,000, right? And you can give it out for, say, $50 per person. And say, hey, you can have internet for $50. It's unlimited, right? So if you charge $50 across the board, that's $5,000, and it costs you $1,000. That's 4 G's a month that you can make. Now that's, one way you can do it, and that's if everybody took it. So you can just do the math based off if you did 50% or whatever. Storage is huge. I agree 100% with Jeff. I mean, if you can find an area on your park that you can be nice and neat and gate it and let people put their boats, and even some people have 2 RVs, right? And they want to store an RV, or they have a trailer. I mean, storage is by far one of the easiest ways to stack some income.
Nice. All right. So tell me about the dead bodies that you're looking for. What's the typical dead body that you're finding when you're walking these properties?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
man. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
yeah, one of our ideal buy is, an older, couple who's owned it for 15, 20, 25 years, who's lived there on a park, and have a great relationship with the residents, which is great. But you look at a rent, for example, one park we bought last year, the owner has owned it for a long time. The rent they charge is $150 a month versus the market, you're looking at 250, 300, right?
Wow.
So it's managed for occupancy versus managed for rent. So those will be kind of like the low hanging fruit. We go in there and we do some work, and then boom. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest value add that we can find. Operational inefficiency. We go in and we improve the operation and have the proper manager and use the software and increase the operation efficiency. Yeah, what are some of the others, Paul, that we're looking at?
Yeah, that just bad operators. And you're talking about Chris, talking about some dead bodies, some things that we're trying to look for that we
Yeah,
want
like
to stop on.
septic tank
Yeah,
issues.
so yeah, I mean, you got to think. The cool thing about RV parks is there's not a lot of things to look for. I mean, like I said, you're eliminating looking at roofs and floors and sheetrocks, and so you want to make sure your plumbing's good, right? You want to look at your plumbing. You want to look at your. Let's talk about septic tanks, for instance. And we buy parks with septic tanks. We are not scared of them at all. A lot of people are. They don't understand them. Underwrite it as if you had to replace every one of them, right? Underwrite it that way. And if you have to replace every single one of them and you can, and the deal works, do the deal, right? But get them looked at, find out how old they are if you can, get them scoped, figure out, because those things will last a very long time. I mean, 50, 100 years if they're maintained correctly.
Right.
And the good thing about RV parks is you don't have families living in them, right? Usually it's 1 to 2 people. You will have families that when they travel, a lot of short-term transient, but they're there 1 or 2 days or a week or whatever. So a lot of people that stay longer, if they're working somewhere on a job or if they're retired or whatever the case may be, it's 1 to 2 people. So, you got to manage that across the board too. Electrical, understand the panels, get a good electrician that can take a look at it. And also you want to look and when you buy a park, also make sure you don't like landlock yourself. See if you can find something that you can, have potential develop to expand. Like that's something that's important, right? How can I buy this park and expand? Like on this last deal, we bought 3 acres with this park, right? So that we can expand this park, whether we do pads, and for this case, we're actually going to do storage because the demand's so high and the cost basis is so low and the return is great and the maintenance is very low. So everything that we're looking for, in RV parks. What else? So electrical, septics, I mean, there's just not
insurance.
a lot.
I would think insurance is pretty low as well.
It's not high. It's not extremely high. You definitely want to make sure you're insured correctly. You have a lot of moving pieces. Another thing you really want to look out for is like no pit bulls, like at the park. Don't let pit bulls get there. The insurance rates get pretty aggressive. You have kids and stuff that are walking around. Pit bulls are a big deal. You want to pay very close attention to dogs. Have a certain rule in place for dogs, small dogs, no dogs over, 20 pounds or whatever the case may be. And all dogs have to be on leashes, so on and so forth. Because there's been incidents with bites, little kids, they'll go up and try to pet or this and that. And people love to sue. So, and amenities, you want to look for amenities like, it doesn't matter where the park is, right? As long as it's next to you need certain things, right? It needs to be close to a Dollar General. It needs to be close to a Walmart. RVers love to be outside people. So if you can find like a boat launch or a kayak launch or some outdoor activity that is close to, or a short drive, it's even better. Like you'll fill your park up so much faster.
Interesting. Talk to me about the money side. Do y'all syndicate these things like multifamily that you see quite often, or what does that look like on the deals you've done?
Yeah, we syndicate most of the deals, Chris. Some deals will, put our own money into there, and it's just a deal we really trust and believe in. But to answer your question, yes, we always bring in equity partners or LP into the deal and pour in our GP, and we'll have maybe sometimes one or two other GPs, but we syndicate most of our deals.
How do y'all? I'm assuming y'all got a typical structure that you try to stick with. Can you describe that structure with your LPs?
Yeah, so our big thing is capital preservation. That's why we need to have a 30% equity from day one, even though most of our deals, I think, we're at 40 to 45% equity from day one. So what we do is we will communicate with our LP, and all of them are accredited investors and high net worth individuals, etc., that we are going to do our best to do the value add, do a cash refinance, and return your capital at or before the 3-year mark, get all your capital back, and still keep your same ownership percentage in the deal, and which is plan to hold on to those deals for the next 10 or 15 years. And chances are, if someone give us a check of $250,000 or $100,000, whatever it is, by the day that they get their money back, they're likely to want to send us the same check because now they're in multiple deals with the same money.
Right.
So that's our deal structure, is the emphasis on the return of capital as well as the capital preservation.
And the model right there that you described is what blew my mind when I got into the multifamily realm. I was like, you're telling me that I can put my money in here and then I get it back and I can deploy it back over here, and I'm still sitting 100% passive in this deal because of my equity. It was a no-brainer. I mean, especially with as much stimulus money that's been stuck out into the nation in the last couple of years. There's so much money flooding the market that it has to be put somewhere. So why not let it have that velocity and go in and out of these deals, and you're still reaping cash flow and sale proceeds and the depreciation factor that you get on your taxes if you've got other passive income, or if you're a full-time real estate investor.
One of the questions, Chris, we got quite a bit is, hey, Jeff and Paul, what if something were to happen after 3 years and every single bank closed down, can not get our money back, etc. So because most of the investors are family and friends, right? So hey, no problem. Yeah. So we actually have it written in our operating agreement that for whatever reason you're not able to get every single penny of your money back in 3.5 years, we're going to sweep 100%, not 90, not 95, 100% of all the future cash flow to pay you guys back, right? So it kind of puts us in a position where we want to make sure we outperform the expectation. So some parks we bought, 8 to 9 months ago, even though we told the investors, hey, 3 years we're looking at, but guess what? Right before this call, point out on the call with a lender, we have probably had, 8 to 10 conversations with 10 different lenders to try to figure out how to lend, to build those relationships. So if we can do a cash out refinance way before the 3-year mark, why not, right? So under promise and over delivery is another thing that we are pretty big believer on, and we try to just crush the number as much as possible.
What are your terms looking like with banks when you go in and do your cash out refis?
That's actually one of the conversations we had with the previous lenders. So there are two ways to do it. One is a typical multifamily structure where you come up with the appraisal. The bank will give you 75, 80% of the LTV on that. But because, like I said earlier, RV is not as liquid as some of the other asset class, the lenders we spoke to previously tell us that, hey, if you guys want to do a cash refinance within 18 months to 24 months mark, chances are you can get 100% to up to 125% of your cost basis back. So in other words, let's say if all of our cost base is $2 million, but a park is worth $6 million, in an ideal world, we would like to get $4.5 million out of that, right? But the lender's saying, hey guys, after a year and a half to 2 years, you can probably get somewhere between $2 to $2.5 million. Then let's let it season for another, couple of years and do another refi. So that's the term sheet or conversation that we've been getting right now.
I mean, that sounds legit to me. You pull a little bit of money back out of your cost basis and move on to the next one. So
yeah, we should be able to get all of our money. We should be able to pay off the original loan. On top of that, we should be able to pay back every single penny of the investor's money back and still have some cash to be in a CapEx reserves. And if that's the case, we're going to just wait for another 12, 24, 36 months and do another round and another round.
So how are you doing? First of all, to make sure everybody understood, when you were talking about you were purchasing with about 30% equity already in the park, that means if it's worth currently at its current state $1 million, then you're going to be purchasing it for $700,000, right? Or less than.
Yeah.
That's how you've got that built-in equity before you do anything, correct?
Yeah, pretty close, Chris. So basically, we're looking at three numbers only, right? What's the purchase price? Call it $1 million, and how much rehab do you need to put in there? Call it $200,000. So that gives you the all-in cost, right, of 1.5.
Right.
And if that's the case, then the stabilized valuation need to be roughly around 1.7, 1.8. So that if you compare those, then you have a nice gap of 30% equity cushion. That's what we meant by that. But it's pretty close to what you said.
Gotcha. Okay. It's a lot of information. This is good information. When you're buying these maintenance deferred assets, what are the banks saying to you when they're 50% occupied or less than whatever percentage that they're okay? I would think, I don't know, what is a bank okay with on the occupation, that percentage of what is they like to see it occupied? I've heard 90 when we're talking about multifamily. So I know you're not buying it at 90% occupied or to get your good deals. So what are they saying? Hey, we need you to get you this much, or we'll loan you this amount, loan the cost or loan the value. What is that looking like?
Are you talking about for like a value add project or at a cash or refinance?
For the value add project side of it, that origination loan.
I think it's pretty flexible, and that's where the relationship comes about. It's kind of like people, kind of like our philosophy, our point. Like people comes before deals. Deals obviously is important, and I think one story part you can probably share just completely blow my mind. Never seen this ever in my life where, someone like Paul can just walk in with a relationship without a pen, without a paper, without a pro forma, and walk out with $1.5 million loan secured, literally like that. So It's a lot of relationships, and Paul, you can probably tell more about that project in terms of how stabilized it is, but it's pretty flexible in my opinion when it comes to local banks.
Yeah, Jeff. My bankers really thank me for bringing Jeff on board because because they're like, Jeff, thank you God for coming on board with Paul, because he literally would walk in the bank and we'd have to write him a loan. He wouldn't have anything. He would just like, just trust me, guys, I got this. But they do this. They look at cash flow, debt service coverage, right? So it's not as much of an occupancy thing as it is it going to cover the debt, and is this a good operator? So I built the bank that funded the deal that he's talking about. We bought that deal for 1.53. We borrowed a couple $100,000 in CapEx, got an 80% LTV loan on it. We did a 20-year AM, and the debt service was fine, right? It was already bringing in. We've crushed the pro forma. I mean, what are we going to make this thing worth, Jeff?
Oh gosh, I think our original expectation, we bought it for 1.5. I think we can probably push for 3.35, and right now, based on that, I think we're probably gonna be shooting for $6 to $7
million on a 1.5 purchase. Jeez. So the banks see that and they look at it, how we've been operating, but we built these relationships with the banks to be able to step in and do that. And since Jeff and I teamed up together, it's made it much easier to now get in front of the banks. Jeff is so sharp with, keeping as the asset manager, keeping the P&Ls tight, working with the CPAs, making sure all the expenses are low, making sure that we have these numbers that show on a monthly basis. And, when you can present that to the banks, I know that doesn't happen overnight. But you got to start somewhere, right? And you can do a seller financing deal. If you're somebody listening or somebody that's trying to get into a deal, you don't have to do a 75-unit deal. You don't have to do a 100-unit deal or bigger. We didn't start there. We did a 5-unit together, right? And we made a lot of money on that sale. But the point I'm trying to make is that you got to get a deal under contract. You got to take it. And then you got to start building these relationships with the banks, showing them who you are. Hey, listen, I know you won't loan the money to me now, but I'm going to bring this deal to where it needs to be. If this deal, what kind of criteria are you looking for? What does this deal need to be doing for you to loan money? Once a bank loans you money one time and you're a great operator, you got that bank on the hook. That bank they are looking to give you money, right? Our bankers call us and take us out to lunch and spend time with us all the time. Jeff and I was on the phone with lenders earlier. Once you become part of the family, right? They go, okay, these guys they're sharp. They know what they're doing. The committee, the bank, we can sign off on this without even sending it up. So that gives you buying power. right? When you're trying to take a deal down, it gives you the confidence to go and get the next deal. But just start somewhere. If you have to do some seller finance to then get in front of the bank, but make your relationships now. Don't wait until you have a deal. Make your relationships now so that when you do have a deal, you've already got all the grunt work done, and at least you can put it on the table and they can start making a decision.
Super important, man. I remember Fatty, Tim's attorney on his staff, he made the comment, and I think he got it from Tim, dig your well before you need it. And I found it so true. I mean, my first time I started to raise for my first multifamily deal, it was tough. I thought I had a network that would be ready and available with money, but I was very surprised when I started making those phone calls. And so at that moment, I began to really push and make sure everybody understood I'm not just a disaster cleanup company owner doing well in business. I'm also an investor, and specifically in real estate at the moment is where I'm pushing. And I started throwing those deals out and utilizing the social media because that was a free platform for me to advertise and build that authority and credibility.
Yeah. And that logic, Chris, applied to both lenders, like, Paul said, equity raiser, like you said, and just all the other relationships, right? I mean, even, though it's been, a few months since we closed our last deal, but almost every single day, every single week, Paul and I will be talking with some, existing and some, new investors, and just let them know, hey, this is what we do. This is our track record. Even though we don't need at this moment to raise a single penny, but using the same logic, we like to keep people informed and keep people educated. We speak to lenders, way before we need to do a refinance, right? So all that groundwork is being done before we ever even need it. So,
So when you're raising your private money, what is those private money funds, those limited partners funds going to? Like, why raise it? How do you know how much to raise?
Yeah. So, we kind of see, hey, this is how much a project will cost, call it, just for simple math, right? $1 million, either sell or carry or local bank will typically give us 80% of that amount. So we need to raise 20% or $200,000 plus whatever CapEx budget that we need to put in, call it, $100,000. So that's $300,000 right then and there. We always like to raise a bit extra to cost the closing cost and some flush fund and some reserves. So call it $350,000. So this is going to be our target, right? So Paul and I will put some of our own money in there, and we'll talk to our family and friends. Hey, here's the deal. Here's the return. Here is how we're going to do to protect your principal. And here's going to work. So Paul's going to work his network. I'm going to work my network, and we'll have a joint sort of share the network. And, every single deal we've done so far, we've got more capital who wants to invest in the amount we have available, which is a, pretty good spot to be at.
Dang. Guys, this has been fire. Like, I mean, you obviously know what the heck you're doing. The information that you just gave the audience is incredible. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are just light bulbs going off. Some people just wanting to get into the real estate asset class. Others may already be in it, but maybe they're at that 4, 5, 8 unit, and they want to really ramp up and elevate. The fact that you guys have such a well-working partnership is also very impressive. And I like that you shared. Y'all talk every single morning, because the communication lines, when those stay open, any relationship does much better. How does people find you and get in touch with you? Paul, you start, then Jeff, you let us know. So that way, if someone's interested in plugging in on your next deal, they'll already start creating that relationship with you.
Absolutely. Facebook is, Paul Larson, which is in Spanish Fort, Alabama. Paul Larson on LinkedIn, as well as my name on Instagram is _Paul_Larson. And then Paul at Larson, REI.net is my email. And then I have a website, LarsonREI.net.
Yeah, for me, mostly just Facebook. Jeff Guo should be one of the first to pop up, or my email, jeff.guo.md@gmail.com.
I love it. All right, one last question for both of you guys. What is the most impactful book or podcast that you have recently read or listened to?
We can go on for about the next 60 minutes answering this question. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, that's so hard. But I'm going to say Who Not How was my most impactful book recently. It really, and I read this book the end of last year, mid to end of last year. It just stuck with me. It really helped me understand that, the old saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, let's go together. Mm-hmm. And it's just proven with my partnership with Jeff and how to find the who to get it done. And it's just opened up so much more time for my wife, my kids, my travel time. And it's just so much more fun to do the deals with Jeff and our other GP partners and LPs. And so the Who Not How by Dan Sullivan was a tremendous book for me. And actually, Jeff bought that book for me.
That's great.
What about you, Jeff? I want to give you one book, Chris, but both point out we're such big book readers. We share books and ideas. I'll give you, one or two if you don't mind. One is by the same author, Dan Sullivan. They came up with another book. Paul actually told me about the name of that book earlier this year, Gap and the Gain, talking about how entrepreneurship, how we always look ahead. Hey, let's buy 1,000 units, right? But what's truly will create happiness is when we look back to see how far that we have become, right? I'm like, man, I'm here as an immigrant and with a student visa and, this and that. Now I get to do deals with cool people like Paul and, other folks and, have a great life. That is really a tremendous book. And also there's a book, I'm part of another mastermind called Lifeoneer. Instead of millionaires, called Lifeoneer, how to have a life, right? Why do we want to do business, right? People think for freedom, but a lot of entrepreneurs, they work 50, 60, 70 hours a week for a long time period at a sacrifice of the family. So that book really got me into mindset. Hey, we're doing this because we really want to be able to spend time with our family. What's the priority? So that's another book that I would highly recommend as well.
And what was that title of that book again?
Sure. It's called Lifeoneer, Lifeoneire. So instead of millionaire, it's called Lifeoneer. How to have a business that serves our life instead of another way around.
I'll have to check that one out. I've got Gap and the Gain. I've not read it yet, and I've never heard that one. So that's
a good one.
It's a good one.
Yeah. Man, I appreciate you guys. I know I'm walking away with a lot smarter after this interview. I appreciate your time. Everybody that's watching that's not in the Bigger Vision Facebook group, please plug in. If you've got a Facebook profile, it's a free community. We're knocking on the door of 900. We would like to see that just grow and grow, because one thing I've found out with networking is opportunities will follow the more eyes and ears that you have to associate with. So that's why I'm in 4 masterminds that are actually paid for. That's why I know Paul and Jeff and got them on here, because it's just more exposure. And with the more exposure, you get more opportunities. So if you're on YouTube or LinkedIn, hop on over to Facebook page, Bigger Vision, plug in, you'll get accepted. Again, it's 100% free. And we talk about mindset, business, and investing. Until next time, everyone, you guys live in success. Paul, Jeff, appreciate you guys. Have a great day.
Thank you for having us,
Chris.